what's up? Aru, 5.2. Oh boy, there is a lot to cover and theorize here, so we'll be jumping right into it. From the Cinder City looking like a certain tower in religion, to the likely location of the Dragon Kingdom, we'll be getting more and more lore on the history of Natlan and the events that transpired regarding the relations with the dragons, as well as the possible past of dragonkind through not only the main quest, but also through our world quest with the little guy. Today's video is gonna be about Ochkanatlan's lore and origins, the Mare Jivari's location and related events, the old kingdom of the dragons, the two new tribes, as well as the latest events lores. We'll be focusing more on the scenes from the special program, so expect a lot of recurring scenes, as well as some almost rapid-fire lore segments. As always, timestamps will be down below, so let's go! If you haven't noticed from the special program, the cover photo of 2.5 has a guy sitting in the middle of the white flame or aura. Whether or not its elemental energy is still unknown, but the colors are reminiscent to Adeptus colors, particularly that of Chenyu veils. The identity of this guy is still unknown, but based on the cover art, it likely has something to do with the Mare Jivari as mentioned in the special program, or the person with a lost spirit that Citali and Ororon are helping. If I had to make a wilder guess, Enjo, our favorite lector, might be related to this event as well, since he's been looking into past civilizations like Ochkanatlan and the Mare Jivari's flames, but this also might actually be the Turnfire flame, which is a white or transparent flame that could burn you to ashes if you look back at it. Interestingly, Enjo is also looking into the Turnfire and its origins along with Ochkanatlan and the Mare Jivari. This white flame is also the same color of the flame or magic as the big purple Cucosaur dragon, as well as from our new friend Kokowi that we meet in Ochkanatlan. What's funny is that the dragon is actually a fire dragon, but has this weird light magic that might be reminiscent of the more divine energies such as celestial energy or soul energy. The color tone of the dragon, which is purple, is likely what happens when Saurians become fully infected by the abyss, much like what happened with the Mountain King in Kenichi's story quest. Now, I've made a video before highlighting Enjo's possible return as a main story character, and honestly this might be it. The tainted dragon can also be seen in the underground cavern that looks very much like the Night Kingdom too, and Enjo was able to save a certain Saurian from succumbing to abyssal corruption during Kenichi's story quest. So maybe we'll focus more on the dragons and dragon souls, as well as more knowledge about the abyss in this patch. Now, regarding Ochkanatlan, its origins come back all the way to the Unfinished Reverie set and the Cinder City set, and some bits of the Obsidian Codex. The name Cinder City is synonymous with Eternal Empire, the Ineffable City or Indescribable City, the City in the Clouds, as well as the City of Flowing Ash. Based on all three of the artifact lores, we know that Ochkan and Ochkanatlan hold quite a lot of special treasures for fighting the abyss, even though the kingdom itself is full of abyssal corruption today. For example, an Ark of Ochkan can be found that was said to be able to drive the abyss out of the world, along with an abyss-repelling treasure that was also mentioned, and weapons that belong to the dragons to fight against the abyss. Finally, there's a golden wheel found in the heart of Ochkanatlan that could reverse time and burn away the dark past, creating a new one. Now, if you could remember the powers of the Night Lord, she could restart ley lines and recreate them with no abyssal corruptions. But that would mean losing all memories of the past and restarting again, similar to what happened with Nahida and Scaramouche, but now it's an entire civilization's memories being wiped back to zero, much like a hard reformat of a computer, and Dendro does love using computer-like styles. And that's a hint to what sort of simulation Tevat really is, by the way. But going back to Ochkan and Ochkanatlan, he was actually a semi-zealous servant of Xbalanque during the war against the dragons. And based on Natlan's weapon ascension materials, he seems to be a half-dragon human, a half-man that created his own kingdom after Xbalanque went into the sacred flame. And his belief in Xbalanque was the reason he overstepped his power. Quite ironic. You see, after Xbalanque defeated the fire dragon Shiyu Kawatl, he went into the sacred flame and left two golden entreaties, one white and one obscured in shadow. The white disc we already have, and the black disc is said to be located in Ochkanatlan, where Ochkan likely used it for the flame of delirium, the Turnfire, against any who were against his ideals about Xbalanque. Glory, glory the eternal empire, Ochkanatlan, he says. Sadly, his belief drove him mad to the point that he severed ties with the Night Kingdom and separated the bond of dragons and humans, which is the exact opposite of what Xbalanque planned. Today, Ochkanatlan is an abyss-filled place that's off-limits to the general public, but it's also interesting that Xbalanque's mural in Ochkanatlan was painted over with a dragon, or a dragon-looking head. So it might have been a dragon, like Xiuhcoatl, manifesting itself again inside of Ochkan. Our friend Manku, as well as Gabe and Kai, mentioned a group of researchers that went to Ochkanatlan and never returned. The Tales from the Cinder City set also mentioned similar adventurers that go there and never come back. This brings up similarities to the Mare Jivari stories, which also include similar Black Tide's origins. But we'll go back to that later in the video. And now we see a Natlanese girl who is helping us along with Kokowi in solving the mysteries of Ochkanatlan. So these might be the same researchers who went missing. Now to me, the look and feel as well as the entire story of Ochkanatlan might be similar to that of the Babel Tower. Human ambition paired with borrowed divine powers often lead to what the sustainer likes to call arrogation, usurpation of authority, and discovery of forbidden knowledge. And much like Remoria and Gurabad, this is the hubris of mankind to reach divinity, and the result is the classic rise and fall of civilization. Only for Ochkanatlan though, since Xbalanque made the sweetest deal with Renova. We're going to move on to the Obsidian Codex in this segment. The Mare Jivari was once a bunch of mountains littered with abyssal corruption, and it only became the Silent Sea of Ashes after the Natlanese heroes Tenoch and his companions went to fight the Abyss 500 years ago. But the artifact set mentions a dwelling of dragons called the Burning Plains. Now, what I think happened is this land was affected by the Abyss after Ochkan's rule, and then would become the Mare Jivari 500 years ago with Tenoch. The reason I think Ochkanatlan is similar to, or maybe is, the Mare Jivari is because the Mare Jivari was described as mountains of darkness, but also a sea of ashes at the opposite end where Mondstadt is located. Ochkanatlan is found across the narrow stretch of water, or mire, north of the Flower Feather clan. Now, if we check the world map, it might look like this, depending on how big 5.2 is gonna be and which compass is the real compass in the game. Now, because Citlali and Ororon are going to reveal lore about the Mare Jivari, it's likely that the Mare Jivari will be revealed in later patches instead. But the similarities between both places is quite interesting, especially when you put all three artifact sets together. Based on Mawika's dream and the Obsidian Codex, Natlan was made to shoulder the burden of a broken world after the second one came and the Second Heavenly War. That's a lot of lore, and their goal was to beat the Abyss with the hero of two worlds, Xbalanque, as per the vision of the Sage of the Stolen Flame, Waxaklahun Ubakan. And today that plan is in effect through Mawika and, well, the entirety of Natlan against the Abyss in the Night Kingdom. Now back to the Cinder City set, we have stories of people venturing to Ochkanatlan in search of ways to either befriend Saurians, rebuild the past, to fight the Abyss, as well as a floating ship. A particular piece related to Citlali and Ororon is the Mystic's Sundial, which is the wheel that could reverse time, mentioning a mystic from the Nightwind tribe named Liriwu who couldn't bring back the souls of her comrades. Now, lost and broken souls were mentioned by Citlali when she talked about Ororon, and the 5.2 event is likely related to that same phenomenon. If I could make a guess, Citlali might have had relations with Liriwu 500 years ago, but that's if Citlali is actually the old hag that she calls herself. Another story mentions a warrior named Taika who'd lost his life during the Cataclysm. The demon warrior of Natlan, Taika, was said to have died at the top of Ochkanatlan, and his final wish before leaving his wife was to name their child Bona if it was a girl. And lo and behold, we've got a character named Bona in the Ochkanatlan quest with Kokowi, and it's the possible missing researchers. As to why she hasn't returned is likely because of that dragon circling the area, destroying everything that it sees. Moving on, we've got the quest continuation for the little guy, now after an entire patch with no world quests, if you noticed. And it's also in Ochkanatlan, which is great because it's all in one location. If I were to guess where this place is located, it would be right below Ochkanatlan, since Ochkan created the Cinder City to separate the earth and the heavens, along with his hatred for dragons. In the Unfinished Reverie set, Ochkan ordered craftsmen from various tribes to excavate the secret source machines of dragons, converting them all for human use, burning all the dragon ruins, and sealing it behind a stone gate. And this stone gate, not just beneath Ochkanatlan, but all of Natlan, is what leads us to the ancient Dragon Kingdom, and maybe even their own Dragon Knight Kingdom too. The Tenebrous Papilla, void fantasy plant, is basically a parasitic seed taste bud of the abyss that feeds on memories and mimics the world it consumes. Outside of combat, it looks like the Irminsul because it's the very core of the world that the abyss take their various necessary concepts from. And once overloaded with elemental energy, mentioned in Enkanomiya by Tsumi and in Natlan by the Night Lord, is the best way to fend off the abyss, it returns to its original seed/taste bud state, which is likely the first concept that it consumed. Interestingly, the form it takes when in combat is very reminiscent of the Vanarana tree, which is also the Irminsul but of the dream world. Now, if you can remember, we almost had a fully fed Tenebrous Mimiflora or Tenebrous Papilla in Sumeru, the avatar of Marana. And if we translate that to human language, then we can call it the Avatar of the Abyss. This particular taste bud also has cubes and attack patterns of the hypostasis, and it won't take long for it to start taking the shape of the Night Kingdom's Wayobs if we don't deal with it sooner. I mean, it's already quite close to looking like a Wayob to me. A parasitic seed of the abyss that consumes both the real Irminsul and the dream Vanarana, hence the name Void Fantasy Plant. Now, the abyss as a whole is quite hard to visualize since we don't know what its true shape actually is, much like the Cthulhu horrors of H.P. Lovecraft. You could say that it's a plant, but it's only mimicking the tree-like world of Teyvat. And you could say that it's a narwhal, but it was only copying the core of the Primordial Sea's memories, that being the Hydro Dragon, which was the heart of the Primordial Sea. Now, its closest original form is likely that of the tumor of Yog-Sothoth, an unfathomable and horrendous form. And I'm sure that Hoyo wouldn't have named it an eldritch horror and then make its original form into something that's comprehensible to humans. But then again, we've got Gun Girl Z. Anyway, Cthulhu and Lovecraft horrors are an idea, not a creature, an existential terror that are beyond control and understanding. To look at the abyss is to go mad, and similarly, to look at Cthulhu is also to go mad. And as Piero says, which the captain agrees with, only terror, madness, and destruction can be found by tearing the veil of sin away. Moving on to the Flower Feather clan, it was the closest tribe to the Abyss tumor, so it took the brunt of the abyssal attacks. Both physical damages and mental turmoil can be seen. Similar to Atea and Koichi, the stain of abyssal corruption never completely fades. And so they're rebuilding their homes and defenses, as well as trying to cope with losses and remaining corruption. Interestingly, in the trailer, we can see lasting hallucinations caused by being too close to the abyssal tumors, as well as more of the traveler's annihilation reaction, absorption, what have you. Next, the wingless in Natlan aren't exactly useless or bad. The wingless are actually pretty strong ground warriors, and those wingless that couldn't become great warriors play more general roles. But that doesn't mean that there's no discrimination or spite between riders and wingless, which is why Chaska's chronicle focuses on fixing that. Chaska's mother, which is a Cucasaur, is also interestingly larger than most other Cucasaurs, but also has paler shades of feathers due to her age. Things to note about the Flower Feather clan is that Aoife, a recurring character, lives here. Next up, there's a floating ship with the same balloons as the Flower Feather clan. My guess is that it's either the floating ship of Ochkan or a special outpost of their tribe right at the border of the Cinder City. Their tribe is tasked with patrolling it, so it's likely that they have a big base near its border. During the interlude quest in the Flower Feather clan, Yansan is there to help since rebuilding their tribe, the Collective of Plenty, near what I can only assume as Mount Tolan is already finished. finished. Jensen's tribe is the closest to what the Natlanese people were described in the Genshin manga, so we might get more info on the Flame-Touched tribe as well as Varessa, who fought the Abyss in the Collective of Plenty. The captain will also be there to help, giving out more information than he usually does. And he can also be seen looking at Ochkanatlan as well as being in a throne room, so maybe he knows the events that transpired during Ochkanatlan's time, or that he has similar knowledge from Khaenri'ah, which might help us take care of Ochkanatlan's Abyss problem. Finally, we have the Masters of the Nightwind and their Woven Scrolls. Woven Scrolls, particularly from the Masters of the Nightwind, are said to be able to transport you to another world. And much like Citlali and Ororon, their tribe is all about shamans and speaking with the Wayobs of the Night Kingdom. They also have very deep connections with their own Saurians, and I think even deeper than other tribes. Since Ictomisaurs can see the unseen, then it's likely that Ictomisaurs can see spirits and communicate through the Night Kingdom. And because of this, their tribe's obsidian pillar is enshrined with the same ears of their Saurians. Ears that look quite similar to the Staff of Homa as well as the Thousand-Eyed God's wings. Next up is the mural, which I think is a depiction of the Ictomisaurs, much like the ones of the Cucosaurs in the Flower Feather clan. But the Masters of the Nightwind's murals are particularly unique. Their tribe is actually where phlogiston engravings and graffiti was first originated from. If I were to make a guess, however, it also looks like Tsurumi's Kapatsir statues as well as the Thunder manifestations, which is also Kapatsir. Now the thing is, Ictomisaurs look more like owls instead of eagles or ravens. But Electro has been one of the elements that hide the more hidden messages and secrets of things in Teyvat. From character quests like Lisa's book, Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies, as well as her revelation after obtaining her vision. And the same goes with Fischl and Oz, the Raiden Shogun and Yaemiko, Sino and Setos, as well as Scaramouche, Clorand and Fontaine, and now in Natlan we have Ororon and likely Jansen, of which Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies have been a prominent book since the beginning of the game. Not only that, much of the old world lore and secrets as well as the concept of eyes are held or given to many Electro characters. We also have the same lens of Ictomisaurs and Ororon's skill, which is quite similar to the Memento lens in Inazuma, and I think that Ictomisaurs can also be representing Khaenri'ah's sinners, Featherfalnir, a raven standing on the head of an eagle, as well as the two birds of Odin, Ugin and Muggin. The only weird thing about their tribe being Citlali, who is cryo but has more knowledge and talent than any other shaman in their tribe. But I guess we'll know more about that once we actually get to see their play acting event. And there we go, pretty much everything I can gather regarding Ochkanatlan, the Mare Jivari, and the new tribes, as well as the latest events lores. Now, if you've watched all the way to the end of the video, please leave a like and subscribe, as well as hit the bell for more of my content, and leave a comment on what you think is gonna come up in 2.5. That's a lot to fit into 16 minutes, and I still have to talk about Snezhnaya's lore, but we'll be saving that for another video about Snezhnaya and Capitano. Anyway, we've got around 2 weeks, I think, until the patch releases like it usually does, and I'm quite excited as to how Hoyo is going to fit all of this lore from both the Archon/interlude quests for some reason, as well as the world quest lore into one single place, that is Ochkanatlan. I mean, of course, there is the Tribal Chronicles of Chaska as well as the first half of Citlali and Ororon's, but I guess we'll find that out once we get to play the actual patch. There's some things bubbling in terms of this channel and its direction as well as consistency, and I'm talking positive consistency, so be on the lookout for some news I might post on my community tab and Twitter. Seriously, I should just make a Discord channel already. But that'll be for another video. For now, I'll see you guys in the next one, yeah? As always, like, comment, if you enjoyed, subscribe, and hit the bell for more of my ramblings, and stay mad, theorists. Bye!